The teacher wrote the topic of the lesson on the blackboard, which was the myth of Tengen, and began to tell about the prediction of Heavenly God that in the future there would be a conflict where the bear who became human after the ordeal of eating garlic and wormwood would join the winning clan of bears, while the tiger who could not become human would join the losing clan of tigers, and after that they would participate in the following events, which are called ancient myths. After the lesson, the teacher began to grade his students, while a classmate wondered if the boy at the window had fallen asleep. As he approached the sleeping boy, the classmate called out and woke him by calling his name Hassan. When he was awakened, Hassan asked what was wrong, and Yoon So-jin asked why he came to school if he only slept in class. Hassan snapped back that she only came to school to complain. Yoon So-jin asked Hassan if he was okay. When Hassan asked her what she was asking, she reminded him that he had something wrong with his eye. When Yoon So-jin realized what Yoon So-jin was asking, Hassan said that he didn't notice anything unusual at the moment and that he thought he would be fine. Yoon So-jin sighed in relief. Supermarket. Hassan was standing in front of the shelf trying to pick up the merchandise. He picked up a can of food from the shelf hoping that she would like it. As he did so, he heard the girls behind him discussing the new cashier, saying that he was quite attractive. Hassan watched as the cashier skinned the goods to the girls. Then Hassan looked at his face where he saw crooked and human teeth. It was a man with a monkey's head who demanded 3,800 won for the goods. One of the girls was embarrassed by the cashier's appearance and asked for his number, which made him shy, saying it was quite unexpected. As he left the supermarket, Hassan thought about the fact that he had gained the ability to see unusual creatures, although their nature was unknown, but it was obvious that they were trying to hide their nature for the sake of coexisting with humans, so he concluded that they didn't want to harm anyone. Hassan rubbed his head and thought that he wouldn't be able to avoid this cashier since he went to this store quite often. Then he decided that it wouldn't be a problem for him after all. The cashier looked at the departing student with obviously bad intentions, smiled, and said that he had found him. As the sun set, a cat meowed, and Hassan looked at the adorable white kitten, saying that it was impossible to resist its gaze, and then opened a can of food for it, which the kitten began to eat. Suddenly the cat noticed someone's presence, then turned and began to growl, making Hassan wonder what was wrong. They were approached by 3 men, one of whom began to complain that he couldn't sleep every night because of the meowing, which turned out to be the cat's fault. Hassan replied that it couldn't be because the cat was too far away and then looked at the men's faces, which made him breathless for a moment. When he saw them, he immediately apologized and said that he would try to be more careful from now on and immediately tried to leave. But suddenly the man behind him ordered him to stand up and asked if he had seen anything. When Hassan heard this, he panicked. He couldn't understand how the man could have guessed that he was in trouble because these guys looked dangerous, so he decided that he had to run away or he would be killed. Hassan ran as fast as he could, and when the snake-faced man saw this, he told Hassan that it was useless to run, and then he stretched out his hand. His hand began to transform into snakes. Then they followed Hassan and clung to him, injecting their venom and returning to their master. When Hassan fell down exhausted, he began to suffer from the poison and begged for help. The viper, who brought back his snakes, told Hassan that he had weakened the poison, but even such poison could reach his heart in a few minutes, after which no one could help him, and began to order Hassan to show his true nature if life was dear to him, calling him a tiger. As he convulsed, Hassan wondered what kind of tiger the viper was screaming about, and thought he had been mistaken for someone else, and began to wonder why it was him, since he had done nothing wrong. Suddenly, Hassan saw a huge tiger in front of him. When he saw the tiger, Hassan began to sob, thinking that this tiger was the last thing he would see before he died, and then he swore, because his favorite animal was a cat. Suddenly, the ground around the dying Hassan began to sag and crack as if under immense pressure, and shards of stone flew into the animal trio. Seeing this, Galioka laughed and said that this time the monkey was not mistaken. Viper understood why the tiger could not be found all the time, because he was sealed with an ancient technique of sealing inside the body and then greeted his enemy. The tiger, holding Hassan in his arms, opened his yellow eyes and told Hassan that he owed him a debt, then put him on the ground and apologized for the pain and suffering he had caused, and finally apologized for waiting. Tiger stood up with a murderous look on his face and extended his claws, saying it wouldn't take long. Viper ordered his accomplices to catch the tiger. Then they rushed towards the tiger. Seeing that the tiger had just awakened, they were sure that he was still weak and that they would be able to kill him. Standing over Hassan, the tiger turned to his opponents and said that he would have to teach these stupid animals a lesson. The tiger immediately slammed the black-shirt beast to the ground, knocking some of its teeth out. Seeing his friend being overpowered, the white-shirt beast jumped on top of the tiger, screaming insults, then received a sharp kick from the tiger's leg and was sent flying. Taking advantage of the situation, the viper threw a snake at the tiger and managed to wound him, which made him laugh. He was sure that he could not kill him, but he could paralyze him. After these words, the viper was shocked. He saw the tiger squeezing his snakes in his hand, from which they died. The tiger said that although he has a tongue like a snake, but the venom is a cat's puss. Then pulling the snake, he pulled the viper to him, and immediately attacked him with his claws, which were at his back. Turning around, the tiger realized that he couldn't kill his opponent, as he was able to turn into hundreds of snakes and was able to escape. The tiger could only curse himself and then looked at Hassan, who was sitting on the cat. Hassan's consciousness began to fade. Hassan heard someone calling him. When he opened his eyes, he saw the door to his room open and a blonde guy came up to him and called him Dyson. Seeing that Hassan was awake, the blonde guy started to demand that he make him breakfast, to which Hassan demanded that the blonde guy stop opening the door with his foot, adding that his name was Hassan, not Dyson. Hearing this, the blonde replied that there was almost no difference between Hassan and Dyson, and then demanded breakfast again. Hearing that the blonde was hungry, Hassan remembered how he had first seen him and wondered if he was the same tiger that had saved him. Even a week after the snake incident, Hassan couldn't understand what had happened because he couldn't remember much after the snake bite. So it was hard for him to believe the tiger's account of what had happened that day. The tiger asked him why he was staring at him and then reminded him that he was hungry. Hassan agreed to make breakfast for the tiger and then went to the kitchen, but the tiger decided to stay in the room a little longer because he noticed that the cat had something interesting in its bowl. After lighting the gas, Hassan broke some eggs and asked the tiger if he was the tiger from the myth of Tengen, because in the lessons they told about the tiger who broke the rules and escaped from the garlic and wormwood test. Not knowing what Hassan was talking about, the tiger tried to take the food from the cat and told Hassan that he was literally an omnivore and then asked who Tengen was. Meanwhile, Hassan prepared breakfast and took it to the tiger, but he was surprised to see the tiger trying to eat the cat's food, and the hungry tiger asked what was wrong with the food, as it looked quite tasty, and why he had brought this furry scrounger into the house. Hearing this, the cat began to growl at the tiger, who responded in kind. Watching this scene, Hassan wondered if this was the hero of the ancient myths. Hassan asked the tiger if he knew about the snake that had attacked him, for it looked as if it had recognized him and had awakened him. After a moment's thought, the tiger swung his hand upward, causing Hassan's clothes to turn to rags. Then the tiger asked Hassan about the necklace around his neck. The tiger asked Hassan where he got the necklace, to which he replied that it was a gift from his mother, whereupon the tiger asked where she was now. When the tiger asked him where he got the necklace, he said it was a gift from his mother, and then the tiger asked him where she was. The tiger asked him where he got the necklace and told him never to take it off because strange things soon happen. After hearing this, Hassan hit the tiger on the head, saying that he was acting tough when he himself was a strange thing. At school, before class started, the teacher introduced a new student to his classmates, but some of them started laughing at the fact that he was short, while some of them were upset that he wasn't a girl. The newcomer greeted his new classmates by calling himself Yonggu. All the while, Hassan was afraid that his new classmate was an animal. During recess, Park Man-seo, the school bully, and his buddies were walking down the hall when Yonggu bumped into Park Man-song and fell. Park Man-song leaned over to the newcomer and told him to open his eyes, insulting him for bumping into him. Seeing that Yonggu just smiled, Park Man-seo forcibly took him out to talk, which was seen by Yoon So-jin, who was standing nearby. Once outside, Park Man-seo asked if Yonggu was amused by him bumping into him, and asked if he would be as amused with a stuffed face. Hearing this, Yonggu called the bullies boring and assumed that there was one order for all of them. Upon hearing this, the bullies immediately began to resent what was said, and Park Man-seo couldn't help but prepare to hit Yonggu. In the moment before the punch, Yonggu just smiled grimly. Seeing the newcomer's face, Park Man-seo lost control of his body, and all he could hear in his head was "kill her," which made him go crazy. Park Man-seo's companions, who were watching from a distance, began to wonder what was happening. Yonggu started humming a song. Park Man-seo picked up a chair as if he was hypnotized, and then he went crazy and attacked his friends, beating them until he killed them all, while Yonggu smiled maniacally, secretly watched by Yoon So-jin, who was terrified by what he saw. Yoon So-jin ran to Hassan, panting, trying to warn him about what the transferred student had done, but suddenly she heard the newcomer's voice behind her back, wondering what she was going to tell Hassan. Looking at Yonggu, Yoon So-jin only saw pure evil. Taking a chance, Yonggu asked Hassan if he lived far away and then offered to play at his house. Yoon So-jin immediately interrupted the conversation and reminded Hassan that he still had things to do. Hasten pretended that he had things to do and thanked Yoon Seo-jin for reminding him, but she asked why he always had to be reminded. Standing behind them, Yeongu smiled and said that she had taken the bait. Then after waiting for Hasten to leave, Yeongu walked over to Yoon Seo-jin and asked if he remembered her name correctly. Yoon Seo-jin turned around when she heard this and saw Yeongu's horrified face telling her not to stick her nose where it didn't belong. After a while, Yoon Seo-jin was standing on the roof under the moon, begging Hasten on the phone to rescue her from the roof of an unfinished building, begging him to come as soon as possible because she was about to fall. Yeongu was just standing behind her with a creepy smile. Yeongu smiled eerily as he watched Yoon Seo-jin. The scarred man approached him and asked him what he was doing, then said that it wasn't the schoolgirl they were after. At that moment, Hasten suddenly ran up the stairs and ran towards Seo-jin to save her, but he was stunned when he saw her standing on the edge. Seo-jin turned to Hasten and said that her body was not obeying because it was being controlled by Yeongu, but Hasten told Seo-jin not to worry and said that he would definitely save her. The scarred man's accomplices who were watching the scene discussed Hasten. They discussed how weak the tiger's vessel was and wondered if he had any special abilities, to which the angry Yeongu replied that it was meaningless because there was nothing special about Hasten. Hasten asked Yeongu why he was doing this, and when Yeongu asked him why he was doing it, he told him to shut up and explained that he was doing it to see what Hasten was capable of. Seo-jin raised her leg and Yeongu ordered her to jump down. Unable to resist, Seo-jin jumped down, causing her to start sobbing as the scarred man and his accomplices were shocked by the brutality, but not as much as Hasten. Hasten could only scream as he watched Seo-jin fall and then see her die. Yeongu started laughing at how helpless Hasten was at that moment, telling the people behind him that Hasten had nothing, absolutely no skills. The scarred man's companions called Yeongu a sadist, realizing that they had trusted this psycho for nothing. Yeongu asked them what they meant by calling him a psycho. They insulted him every day, but he tolerated it all because he was curious who they were hunting, but their target was completely helpless. And then he asked them if he was worse than Hasten. Seizing the opportunity, Hasten attacked Yeongu from behind, but was suddenly stopped by the movement of his finger. Yeongu asked Hasten to be quiet or he could break his neck with just one finger, so he forced Hasten to walk backwards against his will to throw him off the roof. Seeing this violent scene, the scarred man grabbed Yeongu's arm and ordered him to stop, but Yeongu smiled and told him to stay back if his life was precious. Yeongu turned around and asked him what he could do to him, and using his power, he made him grab his head and wring his neck, but Yeongu just waved his hand up to send him to hell, and the scarred man's accomplices who were watching were furious that their boss had been killed. Yeongu turned around and told Hasten that it was his turn. He forced Hasten to start strangling himself. Hasten, unable to control his body, grabbed his neck with all his might. He was terrified when he realized that he couldn't breathe. Yeongu was preparing to use more force to kill Hasten, but suddenly he was shocked to see some energy moving around him. Looking at Hasten, he saw him absorbing the energy. The scarred man's associates were shocked to see Hasten absorbing the black energy. After absorbing enough energy, Hasten screamed, creating a shock wave around him. When he came out of that state, he realized that his body was overflowing with power. Seeing this, Yeongu was interested in this skill and offered to play with Hasten. Hasten jumped on Yeongu while trying to take control of his body, saying that Hasten would not be able to move a single step. Once under Yeongu's control, Hasten began to fight back, causing Yeongu's mouth and nose to bleed. Yeongu was shocked that someone was able to break through his hypnosis. Then his arm involuntarily dislocated, at which point Yeongu realized that Hasten was able to use his own power against him. After defeating his opponent, Hasten picked him up by his clothes and started to ask him why he killed Seo-jin, adding that he said he would never forgive him for it. Yeongu asked if Hasten thought he had already won, and immediately returned his manic expression and told Hasten that he had lost from the beginning because he couldn't do anything when his friend was killed. Upon hearing this, Hasten immediately hit Yeongu with all his might and shouted for him to die. Yeongu only had time to wonder how strong Hasten was before he was slammed into the wall and fell to the ground. Without stopping after the previous blow, Hasten immediately jumped at Yeongu and delivered a crushing blow that sent Yeongu crashing through the wall and out of the building. During the fall, the panicked Yeongu only managed to curse Hasten before dying from the fall. Hasten watched this fall until the very end, when suddenly energy began to flow from Yeongu's body in an upward direction. Hasten immediately realized that this energy was trying to catch up with him and immediately tried to run away, but Yeongu's energy began to be absorbed by him. Hasten was afraid that Yeongu's energy was trying to penetrate him and began to beg for it to stop, but he lost consciousness because he had absorbed all the energy. The scarred man's accomplices who were watching were wondering if he could absorb Yonggu. Then they heard a noise behind them and turned around in panic because Tiger had suddenly come to them. When they saw the tiger, they immediately decided to run away from the place in order to survive. The tiger looked at Hassan, who was lying on the ground, and immediately appeared in front of them. After blocking their way, the tiger demanded that they answer all his questions about what had happened. Then he grabbed one of them and asked who they were. Without hearing an answer, the tiger immediately slammed the man to the ground. When he saw his friend being thrown to the ground, the frightened man began to justify himself, saying that they were just servants who had been ordered to find out everything about Hassan. Tigray asked who had ordered them to do this, and the man replied that they were not allowed to talk about it. Hearing no answer, Tigray lifted the begging man by the neck and demanded an answer to his question. The frightened man had no choice but to admit that they worked for the Night Demon clan. So Tigray began to ask him what kind of clan it was. In the middle of the city, there was a building with bright neon lights. It was the Black Dragon Club. Inside the club, people were enjoying themselves, drinking alcoholic beverages and dancing to the music, and the DJ was working hard to keep the crowd entertained. A woman watching from above noticed that the people downstairs were having a good time. The man standing next to her said that he had found out something about the DJ, that his name was DJ Miho, and that he had gained a lot of popularity lately. The woman asked if Miho was really a guy, and the man said yes, adding that he was also called Nine-Tailed Fox or Kumiho. The female leader of the Night Demon clan thought about the DJ and ordered the clan members to follow her. As they approached the guarded room, the head asked if they were in the right place. Once inside the room, the leader and the clan members began to discuss the case. At the same time, Miho was looking for a room where the Night Demon clan was meeting, and when he found the right room, he stretched out his fox ear and began to listen in on the conversation. The people in the room were talking about how they had managed to find Tiger, although not without problems, and that they would bring him here soon. The man asked the chief if she was sure she could capture Tiger, to which she replied that it should be no problem. She said it looked like the man was trying to cause her problems. Instead of protecting the boy, he was attacked and somehow the seals were broken, but thanks to this gang they were still able to stay in the shadows. The man asked again if she was sure she could handle Tiger, who was the strongest outsider in history. The leader laughed and then apologized to Matsuoka, saying that he was the strongest, but that was in the past. Suddenly there was a loud crunch. The head asked what it was, and then the guard told her that the DJ had been eavesdropping on them outside the door. Sweating profusely, Miho tried to justify himself by saying he was just looking for the bathroom. The head looked him in the eye and then gave him a serious look that made Miho realize that he had been exposed. The head of the Night Demons jumped on the table and ran up to Miho, then grabbed him by his clothes and began to demand that he admit where he came from and what he wanted here, then slammed him against the wall. Feeling the power of the head, Miho recognized that she was good, and that her beauty was not just for show. Seeing the smug look on Miho's face, the head struck him with her foot, punching him through the wall. Miho, who didn't take much damage, smiled again, saying that the kick was pretty good, then asked the head to play with him and started to run away. The angry head immediately ordered the Night Demons to catch Miho. Running away from the guards, Miho laughed at them, then sped up and ran to the window. Upon reaching the window, he jumped through it, causing the Night Demons to only reprimand him. Miho landed successfully and then looked up, where he saw the head of the Night Demons preparing to strike him as he fell. Seeing the head, Miho immediately dodged her right arm, then dodged her right leg kick, and immediately jumped to dodge her left leg kick. With a backflip, Miho pulled himself up by his tie and then partially transformed, summoning flames, and immediately launched a cross-shaped flame kick. Instantly reacting, the head of the Night Demons managed to block the flames with her hands while screaming in pain. Miho was shocked that she was able to withstand a direct hit from his flames. After feeling the flames on herself, the head realized that Miho was indeed a nine-tailed fox. Meanwhile, a van pulled up to the club. A man with glasses looked in the mirror, then reported that they had arrived at the Black Dragon Club. He turned back asking the captain about the start of the operation, to which the scout captain braiding her hair gave an affirmative answer, motioning for them to come out to say hello. Hasten begged Yoon Seo-jin not to jump off the building, remembering how she cried when he saw her and screamed to stop her. Hasten jumped out of bed and screamed at the top of his lungs, then realized it was a dream. Tiger, sitting next to him, suggested that Hassan sleep a little longer since it was still morning outside. Hassan asked Tiger if he had taken him home, to which Tiger replied in the affirmative. Then Hassan asked what kind of creatures Yonggu and the others were. Hasten had seen incredible things since he was a child. His mother had told him that these creatures were friends that he shouldn't be afraid of. After hearing this, Tiger became interested in the identity of Hasten's mother. Hassan named Viper, Yonggu, and the trio and asked Tiger who they were and why they were looking for him. Ignoring the question, Tiger asked Hassan where his mother was. As it turned out, his mother was dead. Tiger asked if the necklace belonged to Hassan's mother and if he knew anything about it. Hassan replied that his mother had told him not to take the necklace off because it contained a spirit protector. Upon hearing this, Tiger told Hassan that he needed to meet his mother, and Hassan, shocked at what he had heard, asked Tiger what he meant. The head of the night demons told Miho that she knew about sniffing around here, but she couldn't even think that it would be such a handsome guy. After hearing the compliment, Miho thanked the head and then looked at the people behind her. The passers-by couldn't understand what was going on in this place. The strange guy just shot fire, which was admired by one of the onlookers. Some wanted to call the police and some even thought a movie was being filmed here. Miho distracted the head of the night demons by pretending that something was going on behind her and then fled, jumping onto the roof of a van and then onto the roof of a high-rise building. Seeing this, the head called Miho a slippery type, then gained strength and jumped after him. As she jumped to the roof, she was surprised to see that Miho had prepared to follow her and was about to attack her with flames. The chapter reacted in a flash, and Miho fired a bolt of fire. The beam passed by the head of the night demons as he was able to dodge Miho's attack, then swung and prepared to attack Miho. With no time to dodge, Miho could only be horrified by the speed and power of her attack, then received a blow that threw him away, barely blocking the attack. Miho could only admit that it was clearly too much. Then the head of the night demons took the chance to kick Miho, but he was able to dodge by jumping into the air. But the head of the night demons was only expecting this. She was preparing to deliver a crushing blow against the helpless in the air. Miho still managed to seal him into the ground. Meanwhile, the captain of the scouting party and his handmaiden announced the evacuation to the surrounding people, then began to watch the battle on the roof. Miho was delighted by the punch of the head of the night demons. The punch even made his head ring. Seeing this, the head praised Miho for being the second person to survive her blow to the head and remain conscious. Hearing this, Miho wanted to see the first person to survive the blow, but the head of the night demons tore her clothes and said that this was not the person Miho would be lucky enough to meet in her lifetime. Miho took the chance and crossed her arms to summon flames. The head of the night demons thought it was an escape trick and tried to stop Miho, but she was shocked when Miho suddenly flew high into the sky. Miho transformed a part of her face, making the head of the night demons sweat in fear, preparing to attack. Miho began to furiously attack the head of the night demons with her fox flame, causing an explosion. Surviving Miho's attack, the head of the night demons was shocked by his strength. She asked him how long he had been in the human world. Miho replied that he had been here so long that he had lost count. The head wanted to know what his purpose was, but suddenly Miho replied that he needed to find out something from her master. Hearing this, the head of the night demons decided to use her remaining strength to continue the fight. Suddenly there was a noise. The captain of the scouting team and his men pointed at Miho and the head of the night demons and ordered them to surrender. Miho immediately raised her hands when she saw them. The head of the night demons immediately thought that Miho was her subordinate, to which Miho told her that she had too low an opinion of the nine-tailed foxes. The head told Miho that she wouldn't let him go next time, then walked to the edge of the roof and jumped down into a crowd of passers-by. Seeing this, the captain of the scouting party doubted that the woman was human, and suddenly Miho appeared beside her and offered to answer the question of who she was. But the agents of the scouting party reacted and pointed their guns at him. Without trying to resist, Miho lowered her hands and allowed herself to be handcuffed without resistance. The agents pointed the camera at the captured Miho and forced him to talk about himself, but he began to talk about himself without resistance. Miho said that his name was Nine-Tailed Fox and that he was born on October 4, 1971. The agent wondered if he was really 50 years old, to which the captain replied that it was probably a fake identity, and then she read that he worked as a DJ at the Black Dragon Club in Seoul. Meanwhile, Miho, oblivious to the situation, started posing for the camera and asked for a change of perspective, saying that his left side was better. The captain, angered by Miho's behavior, decided to ask him directly why he was fighting Du Jong-gun, the head of the night demons, and if they knew each other. When Miho heard that, he asked if that was the only thing that bothered the agents, neither shooting flames nor jumping to the 5th floor. He was indignant that he wasn't asked about it. The captain replied that she cared, but right now she wanted to know what he wanted from them. Miho praised the captain, saying that she lived up to the title of detective. Then the captain asked Miho what he really was. Realizing that he had intrigued the agents, Miho raised his hand, causing the lights in the room to go out, and said that he was a fox with 9 tails. The agents were shocked by what they saw. They saw that Miho had 9 tails of flame. Miho broke the handcuffs and said that they would have to accept the fact that humans were not the only intelligent beings. Seeing Miho break the handcuffs, the captain reflexively drew her gun and pointed it at Miho. Meanwhile, out on the street, 3 thugs beat up a man and then he started to apologize. The thug in the green long sleeve told him that they didn't mind that he was moving out, but the problem was that he should have warned them instead of sneaking out, and then asked him if he had found their money yet, while a suspicious man watched. The beaten man silently pointed his finger at him, and the thieves looked at the unexpected guest and were surprised to see a man with long brown hair. One of the riders raised his hand in the direction of the guest and ordered him to leave, but instead of leaving, the man picked up something from the ground and the riders began to taunt him that he was going to attack them with a small stick. The man put the lifted stick on his shoulder and started to look at the people below him. The riders asked him if he wanted to attack them and then he would be beaten. Seeing that he did not move, they thought he was so afraid that he froze, to which the man did not respond. The riders began to taunt him, saying that he was trembling, but suddenly one of them realized just before the blow that he was about to be hit, and he was thrown into the air by the blow of the club, flying to the top of a lamppost and landing a dozen feet from where he was standing. The stranger motioned to the main rider to run as far away as possible if he didn't want to pay with his life. The lights in the room came back on. The captain asked if Miho really thought they would believe such nonsense. Miho continued to talk about these creatures, asking the agents to understand that mythical creatures from legends are aliens from other worlds who came to Earth. One agent recalled that Superman came to Earth, to which Miho replied that it was about the same. He said that from the fearless god of war to the goddess of beauty whose body could mesmerize anyone, they all came from different worlds. But each of them joined and began to live among humans. The captain agreed that it was probably true and then decided to be more frank with Miho, even though he had probably already guessed it, but they were national intelligence agents investigating the Night Demon clan. Hearing this, the agent sitting next to her immediately resented the captain for telling such information to an uninvolved person. The captain told Miho that Du Jong Gun was the head of the Night Demon clan and that they already knew that she was an unusual person. Miho confirmed that she was also from another world, and hearing the truth, the captain was interested in what she might be capable of. Miho decided to make an example against a weapon. If she was shot at, she could catch a bullet, although he prefers to dodge it. The captain and the agent immediately pointed the gun at Miho, causing him to panic. Then he continued, saying that wasn't her real name. In fact, her name was Shutterwalk. That was her real name. Shutterwalk walked down the spacious corridor. When she reached the boss's room, she announced her arrival and the boss allowed her to enter. Walking up to the boss, Shutterwalk bowed to him. The boss offered Shutterwalk a drink, as she could tell him personally about the club's recent problems. A pleased Shutterwalk said it was no big deal. When the boss noticed that Shutterwalk was injured, he thanked her for her work. Shutterwalk asked if the boss would ask her anything about the man who had injured her, to which the boss replied that it was unnecessary since his only goal was to get the government's attention. Shutterwalk shouted that she wasn't afraid of ordinary people, to which the boss said that they wouldn't have any subordinates left if they killed them all. And then the boss handed Shutterwalk a folded sheet of paper, saying that it was a tip about a guy and that it would be a good idea to take care of him. After opening the sheet, Shutterwalk wondered if it was another stranger. The boss advised Shutterwalk not to go in person, but to lay low for a while. Shutterwalk accepted the order and left. After Shutterwalk left, a man appeared from the upper level of the room and told the boss that he had a very loyal subordinate, calling him the Great Serpent. The boss confirmed her value by calling her as reliable as a tank, to which the mysterious man said that in that case he looked forward to future events. The Great Serpent said that he planned to bring Shutterwalk to their meeting, and that he had long planned to tell her of their plans, to which the mystery man replied that he would prepare for the moment. Meanwhile, on the street, the thieves wondered if the man who appeared could see, because judging by his haircut, they clasped their weapons in their hands and added that this bum didn't even have money for a haircut. When the man heard this, he just lit a cigar and looked down at them. Seeing this, the pogromists started threatening to take his life, but seeing that they were in no hurry, the man asked what they were waiting for. Not hearing an answer, he decided to act first, charging at the riders with a club, surprising them with his speed and hitting one of the riders, sending him into the crowd of allies and losing some of his teeth. The riders were surprised at what they saw, but the man did not stop and swung the bat again, hitting several other riders and continued to beat them until one of the riders swore and grabbed a knife with both hands, then tried to stab the knife with a run at the stranger's back. But suddenly the knife broke. Looking at the remains of the blade, he wondered how this happened. Then the man hit him with his elbow. Falling to the ground, the pogromist covered his mouth with his hand, looked at the man and realized that he was a real monster. The man swung the bat down and hit the thief with all his might, sending him to his grave. Shutterwalk, who had arrived at the scene of the fight, praised the man, saying that he was a good fighter and that rumors about him were spreading like wildfire. The man looked at Shutterwalk, noticed that she looked like him, and suggested that she attack him. Shutterwalk asked the man to put his weapon away, as she had come to talk, not to fight. 2 days later, Hassan was on the train thinking about what he had heard from Tiger. Tiger had told him he wanted to meet his mother, which made Hassan wonder what he meant. Tiger held out the necklace and said that he had been imprisoned in it 5,000 years ago, or rather, he had sealed himself in it. When he awoke in the darkness, he realized that he had been unconscious for ages, and that he now needed to find out what had happened in his absence, and to understand why the necklace was in Hassan's possession. Tiger said he couldn't rest until all the questions were answered, and Hassan asked if he was serious. Thinking about that conversation, Hassan looked at Tiger eating chips in front of him and said that he looked pretty calm after that speech. Hassan asked Tiger to explain something to him, asking him what kind of power he was able to use during the fight with Yonggu, saying that he couldn't repeat it no matter how hard he tried. Tiger replied that he had no idea, and then cut a pack of chips with a sharp movement of his hand. He said that Hassan was definitely a human being, but not an ordinary one, and that it might have something to do with how he got the necklace. Hassan added that there was a possibility that he was an outsider like Tiger, to which Tiger replied that he couldn't possibly be an outsider. After watching Hassan try to open the snack pack, he asked Hassan how a weakling like him could be among the outsiders, and with a sharp movement of his hand, he cut the snack pack, frightening Hassan, saying that he could recognize his own kind and that he could sense if they were approaching. Then he turned to the back of the wagon, shocked that Hassan couldn't catch the falling snack pack. Tiger noticed that someone unusual had entered the wagon, giving off an eerie aura. Hassan looked at the stranger, and then Tiger told Hassan to go to the exit. Hassan asked if he would get out now, and the man with the cigar smiled. Tigray turned to Hassan and ordered him to get out now. With the sound of the train, the man continued to smoke a cigar with a satisfied face. Tigray assumed that if they started a fight here, they would hit Hassan, but the man with the bat continued to stand there, giving off a terrifying aura. Tigray shouted that they would just have to run for now, and took Hassan in his arms and jumped off the train. The stranger changed his phase and swung the bat in preparation to strike. Hassan shouted to Tigray to be careful, and then the man struck. But because Tigray instantly disappeared, he damaged the ground. Dodging the attack, Tiger asked the man if he was a member of the demon clan, then grabbed him by his clothes and punched him with his fist, then kicked him with his foot, causing him to fall. Leaning on the bat, the man wiped the blood from his nose and said that he didn't remember such faces here. Hearing this, Tiger said that he was new here and could be considered a newcomer. The man grabbed a bat and threw it at Tiger with all his might, shouting at the newcomer to catch the gift. Instantly reacting, Tiger realized that the bat was flying toward Hassan, and warning him of the danger, he blocked it. Seizing his chance, the man immediately hit Tiger with his shoulder and then punched him in the face with all his might. The tiger, drenched in sweat, tried to block the attack, but suddenly he saw the stranger fly at his face with both feet and was hit. The tiger groaned in pain, then asked if the man had lost his fear for daring to attack an ordinary man. The man looked at Hassan with a twinkle in his eye and said that those words did not apply to him, shocking the tiger. At the hotel, a woman was lying on a deck chair, enjoying the weather. Suddenly her men approached her and asked her a question. They asked who the homeless man was. The idiot put a glass of wine on the table and asked Frank if he was American, then asked if he had read Korean fairy tales. Frank replied that he had only read Hungbu and Nabu, and Shutterwalk confirmed that the man was indeed from that fairy tale, but from the one where the older brother was beaten for being greedy. When Frank heard this, he wanted to ask a question, but Shutterwalk immediately confirmed that it was true, standing up from the chaise longue and saying that the man was the goblin. The goblin struck down, hitting Tiger with all his might, causing him to groan in pain, and continued to hit him with a series of blows. Tiger growled as he received several blows, then said that the man was starting to annoy him. Saying that the jokes were over, Tiger released his claws, shocking the man and instantly damaging him with the Hungry Mist strike technique. The goblin was shocked to see Tiger coming at him again, and tried to strike with his club, but Tiger jumped up and dodged the attack. Reacting in time, the goblin thought that Tiger had underestimated him and immediately threw an upward strike, but Tiger was instantly on the goblin's back and used the 2 strikes of fierce fire technique to defeat his opponent, leaving him lying on the rails. After defeating his opponent, Tiger began to admire how good he was, but suddenly Hassan shouted at him to step aside, causing Tiger to be hit by a train. The driver was startled to see a man on the glass, which made Tiger feel humiliated. Seeing such a humiliating scene, Hassan froze, but suddenly he heard his opponent say that it was the most humiliating victory of his life. Hassan turned around and saw the goblin in front of him, who ordered Hassan to follow him. The goblin looked at the photo he had been given and asked if they were looking for a high school student. Shutterwalk said yes, which made the goblin grin. Suddenly, Shutterwalk saw many silhouettes watching them from the windows. The goblin asked if the boy was an outsider, to which Shutterwalk replied that he was not an outsider, but he was being guarded by a strong outsider, and the case would not be easy, and most importantly, this boy could be much more dangerous than Tigray. The goblin grabbed Hassan's shoulder and began to squeeze it, thinking that he had been called more dangerous than Tiger. When the goblin saw this, he looked at him with disdain and raised his hand and struck Hassan, knocking him to the ground. The goblin asked Hassan if he could hide his abilities. Hassan looked more serious and bit the goblin's hand, causing the goblin to hit Hassan with the same hand, sending him flying. Landing on his back, Hassan immediately got up and started running away from Goblin. When the goblin saw the boy running away, he snorted and then immediately caught up with Hassan and punched him in the stomach, leaving him curled up on the ground. The goblin was outraged that Hassan had the nerve to run away from him, and said he wasn't here to play games, then picked up a club and beat Hassan with. After a while, Tiger managed to get off the train and rushed back into the tunnel to save Hassan. The goblin dragged the beaten Hassan along the ground, making him groan in pain. Hassan was in a panic, crying as he asked why everyone was attacking him. He just wanted to know what he had done to them. He was hysterical, screaming for what was coming to him. Suddenly, Hassan's eyes began to fill with energy, making them look like the eyes of a beast. The goblin turned around, but suddenly he was surprised by what he saw. He could feel Hassan's energy building up, and he saw him transform, which made him wonder what the hell was going on. Hassan held out his hand to the goblin. Tiger was speeding down the tunnel and suddenly felt an unfamiliar energy. He thought it was a stranger, but after a moment he forgot that thought and assumed it was something else. He assumed it could be Hassan. Hassan began to strangle the goblin with his power, preventing him from understanding what was happening. Hassan, standing a few feet away from the goblin, made the goblin throw the bat away and continued to torture the goblin while smiling wickedly. The goblin saw a flash, and then Hassan began to twist his arm, causing the goblin to scream in pain, his whole life flashing before his eyes. He remembered that he only wanted to atone for his sins for those who were without limb, those who had been wronged, and those who had to live in the shadows. The goblin thought it was his time, but suddenly he saw a train in front of him. Then he jumped aside and began to inhale and exhale quickly from the experience. The tiger roared at the frightened goblin as he lay against the far wall. The goblin rose to his feet, and the tiger asked if he had a last wish, and how he dared to hurt Hassan. The passage to the laboratory. Jabberwocky and the great serpent entered the forbidden area. The scientist greeted the great serpent. Seeing the scientist's grin, the great serpent suggested that he could please them with good results, to which the scientist laughed and asked if it was so obvious. The scientist greeted the sniveling snake and asked if they had met before, then introduced himself. His name was Hua Tao. Shutterwalk immediately remembered Hua Tao. He is a god healer, then thought to herself that she couldn't tell it was him just by looking at him. Hua Tao looked at the computer, then said that there were some difficulties. He said that they first took the blood sample from the tiger vessel and injected the extracted DNA into the test subjects for observation. Great Snake asked about the result, to which Hua Tao replied that the result was beyond their expectations, and offered to look at the test subject. He said that the test subject's strength, agility, reaction, regeneration, absolutely all parameters were improved. The great serpent was pleased with the results he heard, but Hua Tao began to tell about the problems of the experiment. He said that after a while, the subject's physical performance decreases, and the effectiveness of reintroducing the drug decreases. After 24 hours, the subjects return to their original state. He explained that the matter is a special pathogen, which is secreted in the body of the young man, and to improve the sample. Great Snake was ahead of Hua Tao and said that they needed the guy in the lab, which was confirmed by Hua Tao. The great serpent asked what was wrong with the subject in the capsule, to which Hua Tao replied that his body was rejecting the drug and that he was now extremely unstable. The great serpent demanded that Hua Tao awaken the subject, saying that he wanted to greet him. Upon releasing the subject, Hua Tao told the great serpent that he was surprised. He said that no one would have thought that a mere human could have such an ability, and that he had not come across such a thing in 2,000 years of research. He asked if it was heaven mocking them. The great serpent said it might be a warning to them. The subject opened his eyes. The great serpent greeted the subject and said that they had not seen each other for a long time, calling him a damn snake and that his rotten mouth had never been fixed. Suddenly, the subject broke the glass and started shouting that he would kill the great serpent. Hua Tao dodged the glass shards while the great serpent stood calmly while the test subject jumped at the great serpent preparing to strike and asked him if he thought he was a god. The great serpent reacted immediately and kicked the subject with his foot, breaking the gate. The dummy got up without taking much damage, calling the great serpent a fool. As the Shudderwock fought the subject again, the great serpent told the subject that they were all trapped in the eternal abyss, and that he was trying to find a way out. The great serpent removed his gauntlet and asked if this was such a terrible target, while releasing a bolt of lightning from his hand. Shudderwock immediately responded by moving out of the line of fire, causing the lightning bolt to strike the test subject, causing him to scream and then be charred, scaring Shudderwock with his appearance. The great serpent came to where the subject was standing and stood at the hole in the wall where the blue light was shining on him, saying that he was definitely not a god. He entered the room with many capsules and said that he was the one who would challenge the god. In the middle of the sea there was a ship that was being attacked by seagulls. Tiger was dropping snacks, trying to drive away the birds that were trying to take his snacks, and demanding that these flying rats get out of here. Suddenly, the shit of one of the birds fell on Tiger's face and made him boil. Tiger prepared to punch the bird away, but missed the bird and then missed a blow to the head that sent him tumbling into the sea. Hassan stood nearby and thought about what had just happened. Tiger asked him why he had stopped him when he tried to kill the enemy, calling him dangerous, to which Hassan replied that he thought the enemy had a place to go back to. The goblin walked through the streets of the city bleeding and leaning on the ground with a bat, smiling with a cigarette in his teeth when he saw people running towards him, in front of whom he wanted to atone for his sins. Then he lost consciousness and fell down. In the laboratory, Shudderwock talked to the handyman on the phone, then reported to the great serpent that the goblin had failed. Shudderwock said she would go after Tiger and the kid personally, and called the boss, Imogi, Great Water Serpent, who refused, saying he would go after them personally, which shocked Shudderwock. Imogi thought about how ironic it was that he had walked this land for many thousands of years, but this was the first time he had been so afraid. Imogi smiled and told Shudderwock that his heart was pounding with anticipation. Tiger asked Hassan why they were here, for no one had lived here for a long time, to which Hassan replied that it was the island of the white flower and that he had lived here until he was 7 years old, but that he remembered almost nothing about it, and Hassan added that the island was different from the way he remembered it. Tiger asked Hassan where they were going, or if he had forgotten the way, to which Hassan replied not to talk nonsense, for he had grown up here. As they walked on the island, Hassan noticed something strange. He realized that something was wrong and that his memories were different from reality. Tiger wondered about Hassan's behavior. Hassan grabbed his head and thought about what had happened here, and then he realized that he couldn't put his thoughts together. When he looked around he remembered this road. He had played on it with his friends and his mother had called him from the estate nearby. Hassan looked towards the mansion and was surprised. He remembered that the mansion had burned down and that he shouldn't have been here. Tiger thought about what had happened. He realized that this was no ordinary fire. Looking at the burntwood he said that ordinary flames were not capable of such a thing. It was the work of an outsider. Looking around, he saw a tablet with the words White Flower Goddess written on it. Tiger asked Hassan who his mother was, to which he replied that his mother was a shaman and that she was known throughout the area and even outside the island. Tiger asked why the place was abandoned if it was so popular. Hassan said that it was probably because after his mother's death, rumors about the place might have spread. Tiger said it was like a punishment for disobeying heaven, then apologized and asked Hassan how his mother had died. Hassan said that was the problem. He couldn't remember anything specific, only that she had died of an illness. Suddenly Hassan saw a man in a fur coat appear in front of the mansion and hit him with a bolt of lightning. Hassan couldn't understand what it was about the memory that made his head hurt, but Hassan kept thinking about it and wondering who it was. Tiger decided to change the subject, then turned around and asked the man who had been following them to leave them alone. The man slowly appeared from behind the tree and said that he knew the blonde wasn't a simple guy because he could find him so easily, to which Tiger replied that it would be strange if they didn't notice such a big guy behind the tree. Suddenly, the mysterious man disappeared, only to reappear behind Hassan and Tiger's backs. He said he admired their courage and asked if they were treasure hunters, for who would have thought to meet a stranger on a deserted island? Tiger asked the stranger why he was standing with his back to them, to which he replied that a man's back was the essence, which made Hassan suddenly remember something. Hassan said he had heard that somewhere before, and asked if he had ever taken care of him. Tiger asked the old man who he was. The old man asked if he really wanted to know, then jumped over Hassan and Tigray and landed, adding that they would have to force the answer out, calling Tigray a fool. Angrily, the tiger confirmed that he did indeed look young, and then rushed up to the old man, saying that he could have guessed that the tiger was older than he was. The old man remembered the image of the legendary god of war of the East Sea and challenged the tiger to show his strength, so he gave the tiger a blow, but the tiger dodged it and got behind the old man's back. The old man said predictably and immediately turned around and threw another blow at Tiger. Tiger dodged the attack and called the old man too slow, which made the old man angry and tried to grab Tiger, but he clapped his hands as he dodged again. The old man noticed Tiger preparing to attack, so Tiger gave him a series of claw punches, injuring the old man. The old man told Tiger that he may have once been the strongest, but although he still had his agility, he lacked strength because he had the body of a weakling. Surprised by the old man's nonchalance, Tiger asked him to answer for his words, and then delivered another series of claw punches to show who was really a weakling. The bleeding old man told Tiger that he was able to anticipate all of Tiger's attacks and that they were like a tickle to him, but Tiger saw the condition he was in and asked if he was okay, just bleeding. Suddenly the old man laughed out loud trying to hide his panic and then fell unconscious from blood loss. Tiger demanded that the old man tell him who he was, but suddenly the old man's hand twitched. Hasten and Tiger tried to understand what had happened, when suddenly the old man pointed his fingers up and the totem burst out from under Tiger's feet, striking him in the chin and sending him flying. The old man asked if the tiger really wanted him to tell his story, and then he stood in an abrupt pose with his back to Tiger and Hassan and said he would tell it now. Tiger grunted in pain after being hit by the totem and called it an interesting thing, then told the old man to get serious and attacked him from behind. Waiting for that moment, the old man smiled and summoned many totems from the ground, surrounded Tiger with them, and started laughing. Tiger dodged the totems, called them wood, and was hit in his weak spot. The satisfied old man told the tiger not to be afraid, for he was always ready, for that was his totem rule. Hassan asked the old man if he had summoned all these totems. The old man turned around and recognized Hassan calling him totem. The old man asked what he thought he was sitting on, for if it wasn't obvious he could summon Thirtia. Suddenly, the old man lost his balance and fell to the ground. Hassan turned to the old man, calling him Uncle Totem, and asked if they had met before and if he knew his mother. The old man took Hassan's head in his hands and said that they had not seen each other for a long time and that he had been waiting for him at the entrance of the cave. The old man said to start with a greeting, then he invited Tiger and Hassan inside. He led them to the end of the cave where there was an altar. Then he told Hassan to greet his mother. Hassan looked at the altar of his mother. Totem's house. Totem laughingly invited Tigray and Hassan to stay at his house. Tigray asked Totem why this concert was necessary, then smiled awkwardly as Totem, covered in Tigray's wounds, looked at him and shouted who would speak. The old man thought about how Hassan had no idea how much he cared for him, and that he was already an adult. For 10 years he had no peace, as if surrounded by an impenetrable darkness, unable to leave the island. Meanwhile Hassan and Tiger were shocked by the fan items the old man had bought. But now there was no trace of that darkness. Totem said. Hassan put the wand back in its place and asked Totem how his mother had died. Totem asked what Hassan remembered about it, to which he replied that he only remembered bits and pieces. He remembers Totem taking him away, and he remembers the terrible downpour, during which lightning struck the house, and also, he remembers the silhouette of a man watching. The old man decided to follow his destiny and tell Hassan everything. He asked Hassan to listen to him carefully. Totem said that he could stop him, to which Hassan's mother said that he would become a dragon and that with his powers he could do it. She said that she was not sure that Totem would win and that he would not be able to protect Hassan in such a situation. She told Totem to put aside all the small things and think only of the important things. Hassan's mother began to tell Totem that countless generations had guarded the necklace and that it was the most important thing. Suddenly, Hassan entered the room and called out to his mother, who immediately greeted him when she saw Totem. Seeing her son, Hassan's mother told him that she had a gift for him that would make him happy. She held out a necklace and said it was a special necklace that would protect him, but he must not take it off. Seeing the boring necklace, Hassan asked if she had something more interesting. Totem offered to awaken him, to which Hassan's mother replied that Tiger would be freed, but it wasn't her destiny, so Totem should do as she said. Though it's a guess, she's sure that her son is capable of awakening him. After the death of Hassan's mother, Hassan asked Totem who would become a dragon, to which Totem replied that it would be his mother's enemy, Imogi. Meanwhile, in the streets of the city, Panting Man was running through the alleys. The man running was Viper, who was telling the pursuer to get away from him when he was suddenly attacked from above. Miho asked Viper why he was running away from her. He just wanted to talk. Then Miho jumped down next to Viper and he flew to the side and crashed into trash cans. Then asked Miho to stay away from him. Miho asked Viper if he had seen Tiger awaken and if he knew where Tiger was. The captain of the scout squad was watching from behind. As Miho watched the stars in the sky from the roof of the building, he began to tell the captain that in ancient times, the Tiger and Bear clans had fought over this land. The captain said that she had heard of this myth and that it was still known, and Miho told her that it was not entirely true, as some details were hidden from the people. The instigator of the war. The head of the Tiger clan is the war god of the Eastern Sea. The captain asked about the Tiger clan, since they had lost the war, and Miho continued his story. He said that the head of the Tiger clan had disappeared at a crucial moment, giving the Bear clan a chance. At that moment, the captain realized that this was the Tiger they were looking for. Miho told her that the Night Demon clan had broken the seal and now wanted to use its power for their own purposes. The captain immediately said that if that was the case, they had to stop them immediately, to which Miho said that it was not certain that Tiger would be on their side, as he might join the Night Demon clan. The captain asked what would happen if that happened, to which Miho replied that he would kill him, to which the captain yelled at Miho for suddenly going up in flames. White Flower Island. Tiger stood in a fighting stance, thinking that he had been waiting for this moment for 5,000 years. He looked into the bear's mouth and attacked with determination, then took a cool stance, satisfied that he could scratch the wooden bear. Totem suddenly poured water on Hassan and told him to concentrate. Holding a huge barrel, he said that there were no waterfalls on the island, so a barrel would do. Then asked Hassan if he knew that he had special powers and that Hassan, like a good weapon, needed to be sharpened, to which Hassan replied that he would try. First day of training. Totem decided to start training with a run, but Hassan was exhausted first, so Tiger had to carry him. First week of training. Totem announced the start of weight training and said that rest would only be after 100 reps, but shocked Hassan could not lift the barbell even one time. 2 weeks of training. Hassan enjoyed breakfast with Totem and Tiger. 1 month of training. Totem arranged for Hassan to practice meditation, but everyone ended up falling asleep while Totem was doing calisthenics. Hassan sat in the sun and meditated, thinking that he had to learn to control the abilities he had absorbed so that he could use them at any time. Hassan told himself to calm down. He thought of Sojin, Yonggu, and the goblin. He told himself to stay calm. Suddenly, Hassan saw the man who destroyed their home laughing at him, calling Hassan an ordinary man. He asked if this was all the Bear clan could do. They could only crumble to ashes. Hassan ran home in tears, calling for his mother, but he was stopped by Totem, and then Hassan's eyes turned purple. Suddenly, Tiger felt something and immediately looked in the direction where he saw the explosion. Seeing Hassan, Tiger asked what was wrong with him, to which Totem replied that one of Hassan's captured souls had rebelled when he used the power. Tiger was immediately outraged that someone could affect Hassan's mind like that, to which Totem replied that there was no way such a thing could be a part of Hassan. He asked what kind of monster Hassan could absorb. Hassan broke free of Totem's grip and attacked Tiger, dodging Hassan's blow. Tiger said he might have absorbed a few psychos, but he shouldn't have that kind of power. Hassan lunged at Tiger, causing Tiger to grab his arms, and he began to ask Totem to stop him somehow, adding that Hassan had strange eyes. When Totem heard about the eyes, he realized something. He realized that they were the eyes of a stranger and that he had the upper hand over Hassan, and that if he didn't wake up, Tiger held Hassan back as best he could and asked how a simple man could have such strength. Totem grabbed Hassan from behind and told Tiger that he already knew about it. It was a secret heavenly technique that the god had given to the Bear Clan goddess. Tiger immediately remembered this ability. This ability allowed one to absorb and use the abilities of dead strangers, and that it greatly increased the strength of the wielder. Meanwhile, Hassan was able to break free from the grip and throw the totem away. At this point, Tiger realized who Hassan was. He was the last heir of the Bear Clan. Tiger realized that he had to help Hassan wake up while he was still able to do so. Hassan grabbed Tiger by the neck and started choking him, making him think that Hassan would kill him faster than they could wake him up. Tiger grabbed Hassan's neck and began to squeeze it, causing Hassan to pass out. Totem began to encourage Hassan, telling him not to dare lose to the freak inside him, and to remember the real him, saying that Hassan would be able to handle it. Hassan wondered in his mind who had caused his mother's death. Suddenly he found himself on the bench next to his mother. His mother apologized to him. She said that sometimes they couldn't choose the path their lives would take and that he would surely curse her every time he had to face a hard fate. She touched her hand to her son's face and said that even so, she could not change his fate, whereupon they cried and Hassan began to call for his mother. Suddenly, Hassan exploded with energy, causing Totem and Tiger to dodge. Moving away from the explosion, Totem asked Tiger to look at it. This was the power the Bear Clan had held for thousands of years. White Flower Island. Totem's house. Totem and Tiger were sleeping sweetly while a woman snuck into their room. Realizing everything was going according to plan, she raised her hand and prepared to kill Tiger. But suddenly the wall behind her was broken. The big guy in the sunglasses looked for his partner. The woman called him an idiot for telling him they were working undercover, then crossed her arms over her chest and said he wasn't listening to her. Totem jumped out of bed and looked around, trying to figure out what was going on. He couldn't figure out why it was so dark because of the sleep mask on his face. Tiger woke up and let out his claws, complaining that the intruders had pulled him out of a rather pleasant dream. The masked Totem tried to figure out where his enemies were hiding, while Tiger said his enemies would pay for interrupting his rest. The training ground. Hassan practiced until the night before, hardening his body. He thought about the fact that he was the heir of the Bear Clan, and that he was being hunted because of it. As he continued to pound the log, he suddenly felt the presence of someone else. Hassan immediately struck at his enemy, but he managed to block it, and then praised him, saying that it was a good strike. Suddenly, a voice behind Hassan's back asked him what kind of hard work he was doing to train until the night. The masked man said that everything was fine with him since he was the vessel of the tiger. Suddenly, another voice asked if it was really him and wanted to test his strength, then swung his hand, causing Hassan to shield himself from the shockwave. The man with the blue skin told Hassan that they had come for him. The man with the glasses heard this and reminded his boss that he had promised to leave the boy to him. Hassan realized that this was the first time he had seen these men and that he should run because they were dangerous, but he still wanted to test his new power. The man with the glasses told Hassan that his orders were to take him alive, and then jumped in and told Hassan not to be afraid of being killed. Totem's house. The Totem was glad that his opponent preferred physical strength, as he had long wanted to fight such a thing, and knocked the large man down by summoning Totem. The female assassin watched her opponent, but was distracted by the tiger's claws. Immediately, the woman's body lit up with green flames, healing her wounds, and the tiger realized that her opponent had regeneration. The female assassin asked if her enemy was surprised because her strength was as strong as her beauty, and then asked if the strong man could defeat her. Tigray asked her where Hassan was and if they were part of the Night Demon Clan, to which she asked Tigray to keep them out of the garbage, then said they were an assassination squad under his personal command. Tiger started to think about the situation. A woman with strong regeneration was fighting against him and an impenetrable, bulky man was fighting against Totem. He realized that these were the perfect abilities to stop them and took a fighting stance, preparing to end the fight quickly. Training ground. The guy with the glasses started beating Hassan with lightning speed, laughing as he did so, making many lunges with his hands, and even taking pictures during the fight, posing for the camera. Hassan, without being able to do anything, thought about the strength of the opponent, incredible strength and agility. The opponent was fast and his blows were unpredictable. Hassan thought about how to catch the opponent. Suddenly, the masked man stopped beating Hassan and offered him to try his knives, suggesting the bespectacled man to rest for it had been so long since he had tasted another man's blood. Seeing the knives, Hassan suggested that if he did it right, he might be able to win. As soon as the masked man swung the knives, Hassan hypnotized Yonggu, causing him to lose control of his body. The bespectacled man asked if his ally was alright when Hassan suddenly forced the masked man to take his ally's life with a single movement of his hand. The masked man was surprised by what happened when he suddenly saw a flash. Hassan's eyes turned purple and he absorbed the speed of the guy with the glasses. Hassan realized that with his new ability, he wouldn't be able to win, but he would be able to dodge his attacks. Taking the chance, Handsome used his new ability and attacked his opponent with a downward kick, then turned and kicked him from the side, anticipating his victory. The impact threw the masked man a few feet away, and Handsome, realizing that it was easier to move, offered his opponent an attack. The masked man was shocked by what he saw. He couldn't understand how the tiger's ship could absorb this ability and how a person could have such an ability, because with it, he could become the strongest. The blue-skinned man realized that Hassan had absorbed the ability and then he could use it. That's why Amogi needed him. The masked man asked if he could have warned him earlier, to which the blue-skinned man replied that he didn't know about it before. The masked man attacked Hassan, threatening to cut into pieces. Totem's house. Tiger sliced the female assassin several times, but couldn't kill her because of his regeneration. While Totem fought the indestructible large man, Totem again used his ability to throw his opponent. The female assassin said that they had miscalculated coming here, thinking that the old man might also be a stranger, thinking that only Tiger was dangerous here. At the right time, the female assassin used her ability to strengthen the big man, which made him grow horns and fangs, and made him bigger. Tiger and Totem watched him calmly. The female assassin ordered the big man to kill the old man first, and then threatened to trample him. The training ground. Hassan deftly dodged the claw strikes, and at the right moment, he knocked his opponent down and kicked him. The masked man cursed Hassan for fighting such a shameful fight, while Hassan realized that he was running out of energy to use his abilities and was forced to sit down. Seeing how tired Hassan was, the masked man told him that an ordinary man could not keep up this pace and that it was his turn now. He began slashing at Hassan with his claws in retaliation for having fun while beating him. As Hassan endured the blows, he wondered why his opponent was so fast. The masked man swung his claws, then immediately got behind Hassan's back and struck him. After beating the man, he called the Kuzarigama, saying that now it was necessary to use the chain, and in a flash, the chain was wrapped around Hassan, causing him to fall to the ground. As Hassan fell, claws came down near his face. The masked man asked if Hassan liked it and wanted to take his abilities. Then he wondered what would happen to Hassan's abilities if he was killed. The blue-skinned man told the man to stop, as they had orders to bring Hassan back alive. The masked man asked why Amogi needed Hassan, and the blue-skinned man told him to watch his tongue or he would end up in the grave. The masked man laughed, then asked if he thought he was the smartest. Totems had a rampage, attacking Tiger and Totem and smashing the floor. Deciding that their opponent had clearly underestimated them, Tiger and Totem attacked the large man together, and Totem hit him in the head. Seeing her ally beaten, the female assassin called him a useless idiot and ordered him to get up. After getting rid of the annoying tall man, Tiger asked if her regeneration could work without her head, and he and Totem took her life. Training ground. The masked man attacked the blueskin, calling him a self-righteous idiot, and the man, outraged at being interrupted, reminded the masked man that his needles were useless. Seizing the opportunity, the masked man immediately slashed his claws across his opponent's arm before throwing knives at him. The blue-skinned man blocked the attack, saying that he didn't even feel it. The masked man jumped up, and the blue-skinned man said he didn't stand a chance, and kicked the ground, knocking his opponent off, followed immediately by a crushing blow. Standing over the body of the masked man, he said he could consider this a reward for his work. Stepping away from the body, he heard a groan from the masked man, then wondered why he was still alive. Suddenly he felt as if he couldn't move. The masked man stood up and explained that it was a special poison that Professor Hua Tao had given him. The blue-skinned man insulted his opponent while he laughed madly and went to deal with Hassan. That's it for today. So guys, if you liked this video and want part 2, leave a comment below with the word Isiok. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video, but most importantly, leave a comment. You can also write your manga choices in the comments for me to make a video about them. Until the next video.